Well, hello and welcome to In the Growth Space. My name is David and I'm your host. I am so glad that you're here with me today. I've got a guest on today that's going to talk about some things that we as visionaries and as leaders can often think is maybe boring or maybe not important. But I'm telling you, as a business leader, as a business owner, if you want to grow your business, the things that we're going to be talking about with Joshua Monge today are going to be really, really important. So I really hope that you'll maybe even take some notes if you can. Otherwise, I know that Joshua is going to have some notes available after the podcast as well and on his site. Before I tell you a little bit about Joshua, let me just tell you first and foremost, thank you. Thank you for listening in. We're rapidly approaching our 200th episode. Hard to believe that we've almost made it to the 200 episode mark. I'm really, really appreciative of those of you who subscribe, those of you who listen regularly. And if you do listen regularly, could you do me just one small favor? Just go out to your podcast app, click a rating, and then give me just some kind of a review. Just maybe it's a sentence about something you took away, maybe something that you implemented, maybe it's a new insight or an aha that one of our episodes brought for you. I'd really, really appreciate it. One of the reasons why I put this podcast on is to impact small and mid-sized businesses to help them to grow, help the business owners to grow, help the business leaders to grow, the leadership team to grow. And I would really appreciate it if we can get that message out to a wider audience. Now, today in our podcast recording, the internet gremlins were at work once again. And so we got interrupted midway through. And as we do, we adapt and we overcome. And so you may, if you're watching on YouTube, you may see some places where our podcast team had to cut and edit and bring us back together. And so just know that we got interrupted and our Wi-Fi signal got cut off and totally froze on us. So we had to reboot and restart again. But really good conversation, especially around processes and the things that we need to think about before we get to a place where we want to exit our business or where we're growing, and just being able to step away and think about the processes that we want to put into place and we need to put into place so that we can grow to an even bigger place as a business. So let me tell you a little bit about Joshua Monge because he has an extensive background in a variety of leadership experience and across a variety of different industries like food and beverage, finance, manufacturing, marketing, and economic development. He is a fractional CEO, a dynamic fractional CEO, and he specializes in guiding businesses with revenues ranging from $500,000 to $5 million towards operational excellence and scalable growth. So we're going to be talking about scalable growth and how to do that, and some of the elements that are needing to be in place to be able to help employers and companies to do that. Now, as a fractional COO, Joshua has become a trusted partner for businesses. And his aim is to streamline their operations and optimize their processes. His expertise encompasses business operation audits, process mapping, EOS integration, and crafting scalable workflows tailored to diverse industries, from SaaS startups to creative design firms. Now, previously, Joshua made significant strides in economic development as the Director of Economic Development for the Eugene Area Chamber of Commerce in Eugene, Oregon. And under his leadership, over $3 million in economic activity was generated, 600 new jobs were created, and 80 jobs were preserved through targeted initiatives. His entrepreneurial acumen also shines in his ability to build six-figure businesses in under 2 years by leveraging his mastery of process documentation and workflow standardization. You're going to really enjoy Joshua's perspective on creating these workflows, creating process documentation, And even though if you're a CEO, you may say to yourself, I don't know that I need to think about this right now. I'm just trying to get my business off the ground, or I'm trying to really grow my business. Get into this conversation because I think that there's so much for you to really grow and learn from. I know that I did, and it was just an amazing conversation. So let's get into that conversation with Joshua Monge right now. Well, hey Joshua, so great to have you here. Welcome to In the Growth Space, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here. When we were talking, before we started recording, one of the things that I know that business owners, especially, are interested in is growing their businesses. I mean, that's what this podcast really is all about: is growing businesses, growing the leaders. And you've had some great experience at growing businesses, and I'd love just to have people understand maybe your background and tell people a little bit about your journey in growing businesses. And yeah,
Okay.
just let's start there.
Okay. Well, so currently right now I'm a crazy guy and I do have two businesses. I have
I
a
love it.
digital marketing agency that builds marketing departments for people. So it's kind of the anti-agency. And then I have an operations consulting business. Um, and I came in. Oh, let's see. How do we start this story of entrepreneurship, right? Many years ago, I had a corporate job. I think it was like 2008, 2007. Had a corporate job, and I wanted to do something else. And the local game store was available, and so I was like, "Oh, I've never owned my own business. I wonder what it's like." And so I like looked up online like how to do that. Looked at due diligence, and so I got copy of his P&L, which now I realize at the bottom had a big disclaimer from his accountant that none of the numbers were accurate
Oh
and like
gosh.
they were just what was provided to them by the owner.
Oh no.
But I wrote this beautiful business plan, how I would get the business going, and then needed some financing, met somebody else and gave him the business plan. Life happened and never bought the business. Didn't know exactly what happened, but a year later, I got a call from the finance guy, and he was like, "Hey, by the way, we bought the business." And
Oh my
I was
gosh.
like, "Oh, okay. Wait, you took my business plan and bought the business?" And he's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah." He's like, "We it just worked out that way." And I was like, "That's weird." And then he goes, "Hey, by the way, do you want to buy it?" And I was like, "Wait, why you're selling the business already after a year?" He goes, "Yeah, it's not working out." And I was like, dude, I bet you I can guess exactly why it didn't work out. And he's like, wait a second. How would you know that? I'm like, because I know how I wrote the plan. And so I told the guy, you hired somebody, right, to be the general manager. Like you didn't actually go into the business and run it. And he's like, no, I didn't. I go, so right there, like you just immediately had the salary right on top. So
Yeah.
like that was kind of my first experience of like formal business planning, financing, trying that way.
Yeah.
So so then eventually when I did break it on my own, I had a buddy of mine that was a graphic designer that was trying to design a website for someone. And he was telling me the story about going back and forth with the business owner. They couldn't pick the color blue. I asked the question, which don't ask graphic designers these questions. But I was like, how many color blues are there? And
Oh
he's
my
like,
gosh.
yeah. So he shows me a Pantone book and he's like, this many. And I
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
so you told the business owner like, hey, I need you to pick a blue, and then you told him like, here's 1,000 options.
40,000 options. Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I
right.
was like, okay, well, why don't you break, like, what are the main colors that will really mess up your schemes or you really need to know? And he gave me three blues. So I just emailed the business owner, hey, pick one of these three blues. And the business owner was like, number two. And I was like, here you go.
Boom. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so there's something about an intermediary or somebody in between. And so I
Mm,
started a business, kind of being a go-between those.
okay.
Started picking up clients, started picking up work. And then the designers and programmers I was working with, I unfortunately they were very green and so they weren't very practiced in business. And so
Mm,
projects started falling on my plate. So I had to learn how to code and design and do all of that. And so I fell into business in a very weird way.
yeah.
So
Yeah. Interesting.
yeah, so there's
Yeah.
there's like the hard knocks experience, and then
I love it.
most recently I went back to school. I got a degree in economics, and then my last like real job, I'm using air quotes here,
Yeah.
was on
Right.
the radio there. Um, I was the director of economic development or Chamber of Commerce. I did that for 3 years, and
Oh,
so I
wow.
helped hundreds of businesses stay and grow in the area, and I helped businesses of all different size troubleshoot their problems, find connections, get resources, and having that experience when I started my own business again in 2020, I was able to leverage both the terrible business experience I had when I was, younger, and then fast forward to being in a place of actually supporting small businesses and seeing what they're going through.
Yeah.
And so this time I've both businesses, they're doing well, and it's been it's been fascinating. So
Well, and what have been some of the like keys to growing the business that you've found? Because I know that one of the things that one of your strengths is, being able to, help businesses create, strategies and processes to be able to really scale and grow.
yeah. So I when I uh and I was supposed to walk into a $10 million a year manufacturing position as COO. And when that was during COVID, like right at the beginning of COVID.
Okay.
So they said, hey, we're going to put this on hold. So then all of a sudden I didn't have a job. I
Oh
was
well.
like, great, what am I going to do? I got to bring something to market quick. And so I saw everybody going online. I had that digital marketing experience. And so I started an SEO business. And I was like, great, I'm going to compete against every other digital marketer out there, every SEO person. How can I differentiate myself? And so I was like, you know what? Let me do audits. If I do SEO audits for people, it's very clear line of delivery, very clear product. And then I knew exactly who needed them. And so I only marketed to them.
Mm.
And I was able to actually build that business to six figures in 18 months just
Wow.
by keeping a really strong, like, this is what I do.
Yeah.
This is who I serve. And, I would give people the audits, and then they would ask me like, well, hey, I really love the audit, but can you help me execute? I'm like,
Mm.
great, yes, I can help you do that. But I didn't sell the audit with the expectation of execution. I just really focused on delivering those audits. And so that's how I was able to grow that business. And then the fractional COO work, a buddy of mine caught up with me who was a fractional CFO, saw what I did with the SEO business, and then remembered what I did with the chamber. And he was like, Joshua, like, people need your help. Like, you did a
Mm.
lot of great work with the chamber. You should go back to doing that work.
Mm.
So I was like, great, let's do fractional COO work. And, when I worked at the chamber and what I've done before, there's, with a business, they all kind of have the same chassis. I mean, they all have these
Yeah.
like core elements that are really important to them. You need to find people that want to buy your product or service. You need
Yep.
contracts, all of those elements. And so by focusing on those core basics of what you might call, business structure,
Yeah.
uh, walking people through that and making sure that we've got their basics in place and their foundation in place, that's where I've managed to have a lot of success because I think people get early wins, they move forward really fast, but they don't build that underlying structure that they need. And, as an
Yeah.
operations person, that's what we're very focused on is like, what's that underlying structure that's supporting this whole system?
And just out of kind of curiosity, what are some of the most important structures that you feel that either many businesses don't have and should, or just that contribute to the success of a growing business? What are some of those structures?
Yeah, I think well, so I've mostly focused on service-based businesses,
Okay.
founder-led, 500,000 to 5 million in revenue. So
Mm-hmm.
you've got that early success, you've been around for a while, but you start adding members to your team and then you start adding some level of complexity. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so when I look at it in that segment of where they are, it tends to be kind of the internal communication piece. Where are the documents? Where are the
Mm.
passwords? Where are the logins? Where are the resources?
Okay.
Early team members start bringing their own processes, and so then the owner's like, "Oh, okay, that's where you keep your stuff, and that's where you keep your stuff." And
Right.
eventually, you get to a place where you're like, "Wait, where's the customer intake form? Or like, where's that file?
Mm-hmm.
Or where's that?" And so a lot of time
Yeah.
gets spent kind of looking for those things. I think the other piece that we deal with is when you bring in those key people, they're a great resource. Like, oh, I've met so many business owners that have said, if it wasn't for this key operations person, that's a red flag for me because I'm like, whoa, whoa, what happens if this person wins the
Right.
lottery or takes off, right? So
Right.
if
Exactly.
you want your business to continue to grow or to basically run in a way that it can keep running, whether or not people show up, you're going to need to find out what those people know, get that documented, get that kind of intellectual property that is, yours in a
Yeah.
way out of their head and documented. And I
Yeah.
think a lot of people at this stage of growth don't realize that. Like, cool, it's great that you're leaning heavily on these two people, but you're the business owner. It's not their business. And if they get
Right.
dissatisfied or something happens, you don't want to have to restart and rebuild because that person walked out the door.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes I think it's easy to overlook the fact that all of that knowledge is in a person or a couple of people, and if we don't pay attention to that, it's it could be detrimental. I mean, it could take a business down if if you're a small business and you have all of your intellectual property in one person. My goodness, you could just let's say somebody retires, or let's say somebody just wants to have a job change. It could really take a business down. So I think making sure that business owners pay attention to that, so that they mitigate that risk. I think it's really all about mitigating risk. And I know we had some technical difficulties there, Joshua. So let's see if we can pick back up where we were. We were talking about key employees and having all of our information and maybe intellectual property in one person or concentrated in maybe one or two people. And then what happens if they leave? And I know that you started kind of talking a little bit about that. So maybe let's go there.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I yeah, so definitely when businesses are growing, they get people that fill certain gaps and whether that's knowledge or skill or ability. And when it's knowledge though, that's the challenge then
Yeah. Yeah.
because that person knows everything, they understand how it runs.
Right.
And so I would say definitely talk to that person, document what their knowledge is, document
Mm-hmm.
how they do their things. Um,
Yeah.
and a lot of people when they try to do that, they're concerned like, oh, this person is resistant or they're frustrated, and
Mm.
it might be because they see that job or that role that they're fulfilling is they identify with it really closely, and
Yeah.
so
Sure.
they're like, wait, are you trying to get rid of me, or are you trying to take the value that I perceive that
Away
I
from
have
me.
as a knowledge keeper?
Mm.
Are you trying to take that away from me? And I think for a business owner, this person that's coming into your organization as it's growing, if they really care, then they'll contribute that's
Right.
part of the contribution of what you're paying them for.
Mm-hmm.
And then sell it to them as, hey, we're just trying to create a backup system,
Right.
in case something happens to you, like we can still keep going.
Yeah.
And maybe that through that documentation process, that person's picked up a lot of aspects of work that they don't need to do, but they're doing it because nobody else was.
Right.
And so you start identifying those things of, well, wait, oh, you're updating the website. Oh, you're doing all these other components. Well, let's get that busy work off of you and let's get that to the right person.
Right.
And
Right.
so sell it as a way of ensuring that person's position
Mm-hmm.
and, help them because to grow, you're going to need more people, but
Yeah.
you're going to get to a point where it's not a people problem, it's a process problem.
Yeah.
And so having those processes that everyone's following, everyone's carrying on,
Mm-hmm.
everyone is leveraging, that's what's going to give you that growth that you want.
Well, and I think that as I'm listening to you, I think one of the things that is important is in a small business that is growing, there's a lot of people that will wear different hats. I know that when I was in a very fast growing company, sometimes I was an account manager. Sometimes I was, a contract writer. Sometimes I was business development. I was a salesperson. And so having all of those hats was necessary, and yet there
Yeah.
came a point in our business life or our business season cycle that we needed to take some of those off of me or, other people as well. And so, so I think what you're
Yeah.
saying is so
Yeah.
right. And I think it's really important for business owners to make sure that they're communicating the fact that, hey, we're not trying to take this away from you. We're just trying to document so that we know that, when we can create opportunities for you to use your strengths and maybe focus, that someone else can come in and take this over, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And some of those people might even have ambition to take on more or to do something else. And
Right.
so we don't want them to be tied to, no, sorry, you're the only one that knows how to
Yeah.
work this thing. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. That's not a good thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and,
I,
and from the business's perspective too, as a business grows, you have to create some redundancies because again, if your business is relying on one person or just a couple of key people, I mean, that can take the business down and then everybody loses. And so I think, documenting those key processes is really important. Something else that you said that I don't think a lot of businesses maybe can understand as well. And it's probably why it's important to start things properly as opposed to, because I just remember back in the startup days of, one of the companies I started, the computer was a disaster. It's like we had one main drive that everything was supposed to go on, but
yeah.
it wasn't organized well. So if you can, start that with some organization and you begin to have some processes of where people put things, it will help you in the long run so that you can have, more efficiency with looking for things and not having
I
to hunt.
love that I'm talking to a CEO-minded person that's like, it's really important that everybody puts things in one place and it's organized. I'm like, oh, thank you.
Yes.
Your operations person probably loves you when you work with them.
Yes, exactly. Well, it's probably based on experience of not doing that is what's,
Right, right.
driving
Yeah.
this.
Those behaviors that drive us are the things that we've experienced or done in the
Yes.
past.
Yes.
Um, and on that note, you mentioned as a CEO wearing multiple hats. And I think, if I had to kind of create like a bullet point of things that are common,
Mm.
that is another common problem is as the business grows and complexity happens, you're going to add people in. CEOs have to give up some of those hats,
Yes. Yes.
and I think it's a real challenge for them.
It is hard.
Because the documentation that I'm saying about the key employee, I'm going to put the same expectation on the CEO to say, hey, man,
Yeah.
or sorry, hey, person
Yeah.
that's in this job, you're doing 20 things. Great. Document at least three of those. And like, let's get some of this off of your
Off your
plate
plate. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
because, I know you're used to doing everything.
Right.
And so, as an operations person, what I usually will have to do is help them set up dashboards
Mm.
because they're busy doing 10 different things or 20 different things
Mm.
and they want to let it go.
Yeah.
Again, using air quotes here for those on
Right.
this radio podcast. But it's hard to let it go because you knew what it took to get the business to this place, you knew what it
Correct.
took to keep the business running.
Yeah.
And so I try to create a reporting system and a check-in system
Mm-hmm.
that slowly removes the CEO out of the day-to-day of all of those aspects.
Yeah.
It gets to a place where they ask their employee, hey, what's the number for the day? Or
Mm-hmm.
how are things going? Give me a status update. Red, yellow, green. Green, things are
Yep.
going good, but there were some hiccups, but you took care of it. Yellow, something's currently you're working on it, but it looks like you're going to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And red is, hey, I don't know. There's a problem, and I'm probably going to need your help. If you just do check-ins with those different jobs,
Mm-hmm.
that's a way for you to kind of quickly get a diagnostic of what's going on in your business without actually having to physically do all that work.
Yeah, and I think that you hit on something I think is really really key. That CEO or that business founder has been in the process all the way along, and so there comes to this point where they have to begin to let go and trust their people. And so we become less of the operations and the person who's getting it done and more of a people developer. And we have to begin thinking of ourselves and having the mindset of I'm a people developer and I'm developing the people, and I want them to be able to follow the processes that I use. And it's probably even, unconscious, the processes that they used. And so, having somebody like you
Yeah.
come in and help document those and really articulate those is, I think, really helpful at a certain stage, and I think that that's where some businesses can fall down, where the business owner doesn't get out of that mindset of I got to be the one that does all of this, and so it's really
Yeah, and
hard.
and I think it stems from that very first fear that no one does it as good as I do.
Yeah, right, right.
And and let me be 100% and say you're probably right to a point
Yeah.
where, no one's going to do it the way you do it as good as you do it.
Hmm.
That's no one can argue against that. But are you really the best person to do that, or are
Right.
you really doing it the best way?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, that's where you hire people that have those specialized skills or that, can do those kind of things.
Hmm.
You bring them in and have them kind of re-envision that role or that task or that responsibility.
Exactly.
And you've seen it.
Yep.
You get the right person in that position that can just excel and they take it to a whole nother
And they'll
level.
do it better than you
So
ever could, right? You know,
see, and I think that's the trick with like
yeah.
for working with an operations person. I think the CEO has to be in a place where, okay, I don't know everything. I'm not I have to let go of some of the control.
Yep.
I have to know that I'm going to hire people and they're going to make mistakes. They're not
Yep.
going to do it the way I do it.
Yeah.
But Dan Martell has a statement, 80% done by somebody else is 100%
I
awesome.
love his book. Yes, it is exactly right. Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that sometimes we have to be able to hand off and let somebody do it 80% as good as we could do it. And eventually they're going to get to 100 or maybe even 110%. They're going to do it better than us at some point. And so yeah,
Yeah.
releasing that is going to that's kind of like where you're shifting out of second gear and going into third gear, and yeah, you may slow down a little bit on the power curve for just a moment, but then eventually you're going to really take off. And I think that if we can remind business owners that that's the process of growth and that's the process that happens, they'll maybe relax a little bit and understand that that's part of
Yeah,
it.
hopefully,
Yeah,
hopefully.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I usually find as an operations person, so I'll come in, I'll help put out the fires, I'll help put the wheels back on the bus,
Right.
and then the business owner will go grab a can of gas and
Throw it
some
back on the
matches and
fire.
be like, yeah, yeah, if things are on fire, then I don't know what's going on. It's like, no, 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 listen,
Yeah, you don't want.
slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Like,
You're preaching to the choir with that one. Yeah, absolutely. Oh my gosh, yeah, I love that. So,
yeah, so like if you miss those chaotic days of first starting your business, then don't hire an operations person. Keep doing what you're doing by all
yeah,
means. But
yeah, keep.
if you want to get to the place where you're really focusing on the strategic parts,
Yeah,
you're really focusing on the passionate elements of your business, and you want to cut down to a regular work week.
yeah.
I'm not even going to try to assign hours to it, but just a normalized schedule that
Mm-hmm.
your family can predict and you can, and your clients and your staff. Like,
Mm,
to do that, you gotta get to a place where more of what you're doing is being, I don't want to say controlled, but more fenced in or guideposted by,
yeah,
operations and processes.
yeah, yeah. You said something just a moment ago that got me thinking about some businesses, have failed because of their success. And I wonder if you've seen that as well, because I think that sometimes businesses can grow and maybe they grow really fast and they don't adhere to some of those things where they put processes into place, and they fail because they've been too successful.
Yeah, I had when I was at the chamber doing the economic development work, I had a CEO and his wife of one of the largest food and beverage manufacturers in my office crying
Oh, wow.
because they were trying to pass the business on to their family,
Mm,
but they grew like, I mean, they grew. Their story is really phenomenal, and
mm,
it's. I mean, I wish someone would put it in a book. Um, they just grew through being the right place at the right time numerous times.
mm.
They started selling product out of the back of their car,
Oh,
like
wow.
way back in the day, like in the 60s and 70s, and then,
Yeah.
they did well enough, so then they bought their first place, bought their next place, bought,
Hmm.
but they did that all under their own name, and so all of a sudden now here they are ready to retire. They have three adult children. They're trying to figure out who to pass it to.
Mm-hmm.
The youngest is the one that has the next set of vision and kind of next set of purpose for what the business looks like.
Mm.
But the eldest thinks that they're getting it.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
then, so they've got that family dynamics in that. And then
Yeah.
you have the property and all of the resources, and so you can't just gift it to them because
No,
the
yeah.
gift tax is just crazy.
Right.
And so they're trying to figure out how do they pass these assets on.
Mm-hmm.
It's still in their name.
Mm-hmm.
They want to make sure that there's enough money that they can retire and not have to worry about anything. But
Yep.
if they hand everything over, then essentially everything they built over their whole lifetime, they're handing it to their kids and trusting their kids are going to keep it going. That's
Right.
that weird.
Well, it is a weird dynamic, but it's also something I think that a lot of business owners need to be thinking about now, and as opposed to at that point. It's being able to have the ability to step in and develop those people, develop those kids, so that they can understand how to run a business. I mean, I'm working with a business owner right now who is developing the next generation of their business, because they want to ensure the same thing. They want to make sure that when they leave, that the younger people who are in the business now, but they're not in a role that's leading, can lead and can take the business to the next level. And I think that if business owners can be aware that could happen, they need to start taking action now. I guess that would be my message: is that take action
Yeah.
now, so that you are prepared for when that time is that you're going to exit, because at that point it might be too late. And by the time you say, hey, I'm ready to exit, it is too late, because you need to start this process out 3 to 5 years ahead of time, so that you can
Yeah,
begin developing
I
people.
yeah, because I've actually one of my outreach that I did, I was reaching out to business brokers, exit planners, certified exit planners,
Yeah.
and M&A folks. And the reality for anyone that has their own business, there's an exit.
Yeah.
I don't know what it looks like. It could be
Yeah.
a PE firm walks in with a check and wants to buy you out,
Right.
or you could be separated from your spouse. Like, I
Yep.
don't want to send negative vibes, but
Yeah. Yeah.
or you want to relocate closer to your family, and so you have a very location centric business that you need
Yeah.
to get yourself out of. So knowing that there is an exit, yeah, plan for that. And
For
you're
sure.
right. I mean, the best advice is if you're, I think the minimum to start planning is 5 years, like
Yeah. For sure.
because because like in the story that I was telling you, the younger family members, they were not financially in a place to buy the business. Like they
Sure.
couldn't afford,
Yeah. Yeah.
a few hundred million for
Right.
for this organization. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, let me just pony up the cash. Like,
Right.
it didn't it they weren't in a place. And so um understanding, even if your business, like, here's the other side with growth for growth's sake is pointless. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
why do you want to grow the business?
Right.
Like, is there more people you can help? Is there more people you can hire? Like,
Yeah.
why are you growing?
Mm-hmm.
But knowing that you're going to go that direction, then also be a good steward and know how to pass that on or how to
Right.
transition that. So
Well, and
I
sometimes
think,
it takes connecting with people, like you were saying, like a certified exit planner. They can help you think through some of these issues and think through the process of planning. And I think that that's what's really helpful. Just like a CPA or just like an attorney, those exit planning professionals will help you to think through how can we help this business grow and really meet your why, meet the purpose that you have for the business. Joshua, these are such important topics, and I'm so glad that you're bringing them up and bringing them forward, and really appreciate the conversation around processes and how to implement those processes, because I think it's a topic that a lot of businesses and business owners don't think about when they're first starting out. Because look, they've got they're running with their hair on fire. They're trying to
yep.
just keep the business going, keep the food on the table. And so I think it's a really important topic, and I'm really appreciative that you brought it forward. Is there anything, as we kind of wrap up here, is there anything that you would just encourage business owners to pay attention to as they grow?
Yeah, I think I definitely have advised on numerous occasions for those founders and CEOs to pause
Yeah,
and take a step back
yeah,
and just kind of get another perspective on what they're doing. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Are you enjoying this?
Yeah.
Is the business you started, a couple years ago, is it still what you want to do now?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of refresh themselves a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
um, and get out of the day to day, get out of the grind just for a little bit and
Yeah.
take some perspective on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you do that, understand that, especially if your business is succeeding as far as dollars and revenue and everything else, but you're tired and you're miserable and
Yeah.
your things are just not where you want it to be, um, know that you are definitely in a place where being more intentional about building those processes and building kind of the foundational elements, you're
Mm-hmm.
probably missing those things
Right.
because I've met business owners that are very successful, at 3 million, 5 million, 10 million, 50 million.
Yeah.
They just figure out where they need to be and how to build the structure and team in place,
Mm-hmm.
get a decent salary, get a decent draw,
Mm-hmm.
and they're happy.
Right.
Cool, great,
Yeah.
you did it.
Right.
So figure out what that looks like.
Right.
That's the place that I think you should be.
Yeah.
But when you're in growth though, then your your vision's a little different at that time.
Well, but I think your advice is spot on, and that is to be intentional. You used the word intentional about stepping away, and there's so many different books that talk about stepping away to be able to look at a different altitude to work on the business rather than just in the business all the time. And it's counterintuitive and it's hard to do because you feel like, and when you're stepping away for a little while, that things are going to go haywire. But I promise you, if it's going to be okay. Even if it's
Yeah,
just for a
take your
day.
hand off the tiller for just a few seconds. The
Exactly.
the boat's still gonna sail itself where it needs to
Exactly.
go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's still going to go for sure. For sure. Well, Joshua, thank you so much for being here and for sharing some of your insights. Where can people get in touch with you? Where can they find out more about the work that you do?
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn, Joshua Monge, Monge. I'm easy to find.
Yeah.
And then also check out my website, thinkadaptbuild.com. I have resources on there, and I'm actually going to take this podcast too and put some notes and everything too. So
Yeah.
if you guys need quick notes, like we'll put some stuff there for you.
Love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Joshua. It's been a pleasure to have you on, and appreciate your
David,
insights.
I love your insights. I love that you have the CEO perspective. It's really, really was fun. Thank you.
My pleasure.